So, welcome back to the Real Football Show. I'm Ryan Lam. Today I have Jordan Lewis with me, and we're discussing a team that I'm iffy on, but you're high on, Manchester City. Jordan, how are you doing?
Doing very well, Ryan. How you doing?
Well, can't really complain right now. Football's coming back. Everything's kind of in place, despite like we said, it's basically what a few weeks off, and they're back at it again. So let's start right off with a review of Manchester City's season because it's kind of interesting. It's not like they put out bad performances, but then is that they have some slip ups, especially early on in the season, that gave Liverpool that lead to run away with and eventually capture the Premier League title. For you as a fan, do you think that's a satisfactory performance with this caliber of a team?
When I'm evaluating last season, I'd say as a City fan, I was a little disappointed. I mean, it's tough. We did win the Premier League back to back, and to go for that again in a third year in a row, especially against a tough team like Liverpool, has been pushing to win the league for their first time. It's going to be tough, and they were the rightful winners, and we did finish in second place. So I am happy about that, and happy we're in the Champions League for this upcoming season. But yeah, I mean that point gap, the difference in points was just kind of alarming for me. I kind of wish that was closer, and obviously the way that City exited the Champions League to Lyon was very disappointing. So as a whole, we did win one trophy, but I wasn't too pleased with my team's performance last season.
Yeah, even if you look at the stats, you could see some like shifting actually within the structure of the team. We talk about, of course, Kevin De Bruyne being, in my opinion, the best midfielder in the world right now. He has like 16 goals and 22 assists in the past season in all competitions. And then you see the role shift, like I talked about. Aguero is a little bit out of the lineup because of injuries and also his age. You see Jesus stepping up with 23 goals, but then the most of it is Sterling, who has 31 goals and 5 assists. That's kind of like against or in reverse toward what we think of him, maybe like as a winger. So who's a player that impressed you the past season and someone that you feel like is a little bit lackluster and would like to see him step up?
Like you mentioned, Sterling and Jesus did have very great seasons for us, and honestly, I think someone who I've come to really respect and someone who really should be one of the first names on the team sheet is Sterling. He was our top goal scorer in all competitions, and under Pep Guardiola, I think he's only become better year after year and added different elements to his game. So if he can continue that form for us next season, I'm going to be really happy with that. And as for someone who I'm disappointed with and I think really needs to improve, I would go for Mendy. We signed him for around £50 million, and while he did have a season-ending injury pretty much right as his career started, he's never really been able to bounce back. And not only his playing ability, but I think his mentality and the way he approaches games and training should come into question. So honestly, for the amount of money that City spent and the role that he's played in the past couple of years, I'd really like to see some changes in that regard.
Like that completely makes sense because if there's one place that the City lineup has a little bit of hole, is kind of in the left back position with Mendy, and like I'm not really sure, do you really want to play Zinchenko long term in that position when he's excelling or at least has more opportunities to play up front in the Ukraine setup and has been better? But then there could be new signings that could help out the situation. With Man City, there's like 4 main signings. 2 of them should feature in the first team, in my opinion, or like at least in the more rotation. 2 of them being young projects. There are 2 young right backs they signed for like millions of dollars, not even tens of millions. And then the 2 I want to talk about, of course, is Nathan Ake from Bournemouth and Ferran Torres from Valencia. Let's start with Ake because he looks to be an important piece, but then he, in my opinion, he's catching in a very weird time where he could play left back. And he's played left back for the Netherlands in the past, like even as close as the past Nations League matches. But then, do you want to play Ake at left back right now when there is someone that, like, say, if Koulibaly doesn't come, Laporte still needs a solid center back pairing, and Ake could be it. What would be your decision if you're in Pep Guardiola's shoes with Nathan Ake's role?
As of right now, I've read that they're prepping him for a number of positions in the back, and honestly, I could see him slotting into that left back role. And there's not telling how well he's going to do until he actually does step on the pitch in that role. So, ideally for me, my best case scenario would be that Man City do go ahead and sign Koulibaly, which I do believe they will do, and then Ake will slot into that left back role. So honestly, as you mentioned, he has experience with the national team in that role, and I think that he was a great signing. And some people have questioned the price we paid for him. It was around £39 million, but I think it was a necessary signing because we need to assure our defense. And I would be more than happy to see him start at left back and see how well he does to start off the season.
I mean, especially with a situation where he has the Premier League experience, and a lot of people like it's something that matters when you see good foreign players come in, and sometimes they still struggle, but then he's used to the toughness, the intensity of Premier League. What about Ferran Torres? What are your early expectations with him? Like, he is a winger, so he could probably fit in the lineup here and there with the rotation and all the matches that City is going to play, especially with Leroy Sané's departure.
Yeah, I think he's a really good and really exciting signing. He's already looked very promising in a couple of European Nation League games that he's played in. And I don't think that he'll start right off the bat. I think he's a player that Guardiola will look to bring on and see how he impacts the game. But I definitely think it was a great call from City to go ahead and sign him to replace Leroy Sané. As we've seen, Real Madrid failed to replace Ronaldo, and they had issues with that. So I think it was a good move to replace Sané, as he was a big player who left. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how Torres can adapt to the Premier League and how many goals and assists and just how well he's going to contribute to the team.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to expectations, because I feel like this part is a rather important conversation for Manchester City team. So, I mean, the first thing is that there seems to be a change in roles, like I said earlier, with different positions and like Sterling diversifying his role, but then also a change in generation within the City team. You see Sergio Aguero fading out gradually, but he could still ping that one shot that could change the game. David Silva has departed the club after 10 years of tenure with City, and you see guys like Fernandinho start to take more of a back seat. He's still a very important player to City in my opinion, but then with players like Rodri and Phil Foden coming up, you see Silva leave and maybe players like Fernandinho taking a back seat. So what are you, I guess, of course you have attachment to those older players because they have been helping City win leagues here and there, but then what are your thoughts about this young crop trying to step up, especially in a player like Foden and new signings who has been youth based?
I think City's actually doing a great job of transitioning some of the older players of their squad and bringing in new players. I think Kevin De Bruyne is, as you mentioned, with Silva leaving and Aguero and Fernandinho soon on their way out, some of the players that have been with City since around 2015, 2016 are being prepped to step up and be leaders for the club. So I see Sterling and Kevin De Bruyne becoming captains, becoming huge voices. And I think that, City, the chairman Khaldoon admitted that, the type of player that they look to sign is around anywhere from 22 to 25 years of age. So, yeah, I think they're doing a great job of preparing the club for the future, and players like Kevin De Bruyne, who have been around since, Silva, Aguero, Fernandinho, and Torre, will have that experience to guide the newer players and new signings such as Foden and Torres.
Yep. And just looking forward into next season, what are you expecting? Of course, the one thing City has is really squad depth. They have a lot of good players in a lot of different positions, but then you will also see players for me, I really enjoy watching Bernardo Silva, but sometimes he won't get to feature because of Mahrez, because of even like I don't want to bring it up, but then against like Lyon or Real Madrid, Pep Guardiola starts to put out like this weird like five at the back weird lineups that sees him over tinker the team. So like who do you see as I guess basically the core members that he needs to feature in this squad? I know the answers are De Bruyne, Sterling, but then who else could fit around them well, especially maybe in more of a 4-2-3-1 setup that Guardiola has been using outside of his weird tinkering.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest issue with Guardiola. I think, we would have beat Lyon if we had just played, the formation and just the style that we've been playing all season. Because, if you're the better team on paper and you believe that, you have the experience and stronger side, why not just make it easier for yourself? But to answer the question, you said De Bruyne and Sterling got to be two of the first names on the team sheet. I think Laporte is easily our best defender, and he's a rock at the back, so he should always be there. Ederson's been a great goalie for us over the years, despite a few mistakes, but I still have some confidence in him. Kyle Walker is someone who really impressed me this past season with his performances, particularly against Real Madrid and after the lockdown. So, I think when I think of Man City and the formation and starting lineup I want to see, I usually think of a 4-3-3, and there's still some positions to be decided over, such as left back. We don't know if Mendy's going to play there or Ake, but yeah, I think De Bruyne and Foden need to be in the middle with Rodri behind them. I think Laporte and ideally Koulibaly would be a great pairing at the back with Ake on the left and Walker on the right. And as for up top, I see Sterling on the left with the rotation of maybe Jesus and Aguero, depending on their form. And then right wing, you have a number of players you can rotate. I wouldn't say anyone's guaranteed to have a starting spot there, but you have Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, and again, Ferran Torres coming in. So that's the 11 I'd like to see personally.
Mm-hmm. So finally, more guessing stuff, I guess. Is a more quickfire guessing questions, but a player that you want to see step up next season to help City compete at the highest level because that's your expectation. B, Premier League finish. C, I know the draw hasn't come out yet, but assuming everything is kind of in a mean, like right in the middle, where do you think City can advance to in European competition?
So firstly, as you mentioned with Aguero kind of wrapping up his last years, I'd love to see whether or not Jesus is truly going to be his successor. Man City have talked about potentially going out and signing someone like Lautaro Martinez from Inter to replace Aguero. So I'd really like to see if Jesus can continue to be consistent and score at least, I'd love to see at least 20 goals from him every season. So I'm really counting on him to be a player to step up big time for City. In terms of Premier League finish, it's going to be another really tight title race. Chelsea they've had an incredible offseason with all their signings, and while it may take a while, maybe a season or two for their squad to gel, I see City finishing in the top three, no less, and I'm going to predict them to bounce back and actually win the league this year. So yeah, I'll go with the first place finish for City. And then as far as the Champions League, I've been saying it season after season. I'm feeling like it's our year, and it just keeps failing. So I'm going to keep the hope alive, and I'm going to say that, after last year's really tough defeat, the players are going to be extra motivated to bounce back and make a strong statement in the Champions League. So why not? I'm going for a Champions League and a Premier League win for City.
Double ambitious.
Yeah.
So that's all the time we have for this preview series. Thank you very much for Jordan to hop on, and there will be more content coming out, be it previews or even more match recaps. So I'm sure some of the faces that I've featured will be on as well. So again, thank you very much for hopping on, Jordan. I look forward to chat with you soon.
Thank you for having me, man.